So with My Hero Academia Season 5 Episode 7, the 95th episode of the series in general, we have the continuation of our joint training battles between Class 1A and Class 1B. We'd firstly see the aftermath of the battle between Team Kendo and Team Momo. She-Mage would offer Tokoyami a lozenge to alleviate his sore throat, but he would refuse, not wanting to be pitied. We would also see Momo be brought away as she is currently unconscious by way of a couple of robots. And at that, these robots are pretty sassy. They seem to have personalities of their own, and so I have to question who is making these guys, or what is making these guys. It would be really cool if there was a quirk behind this that was additionally adding a bit of sentience to them, but I don't really know. UA has since the very beginning been utilizing robots and the like across the board, and so I'd imagine they're coming from somewhere. A character like that someday coming out of the woodwork would be really interesting. But yeah, with the last fight, there was a whole lot of damage done to the surrounding area. And as heroes, you want to mitigate that as much as possible. You want to reduce the possibility of there being debris everywhere and for buildings to be collapsing. But here we have the complete opposite. And you could argue that each team is to perceive the other as if they were villains, but regardless, they all want to be heroes, and so they should act accordingly, hopefully. But I mean, if everyone on the other team is going all out, what am I gonna do, just sit there? But because of the destruction to the surrounding area and the fact that She-Mage's mushrooms needed some time to disappear, they would then take a break. With this, we would have a bit of conversation amongst our various characters, adding in a bit of humor here and there, but this would ultimately be put on pause as All Might needed to speak to Deku. Now, this conversation didn't exactly provide us with anything we don't already know. It was just a matter of Deku providing All Might a bit of a status update. However, All Might would warn Deku to be weary of Shinso, considering the last time the two of them fought, the vestiges of One for All were awoken, and on account of the many eyes that are bound to be watching this fight, he should be careful. We would furthermore have the interjection of Bakugo, as he would then be brought up to speed on the current situation with One for All. Here he was to an extent being your typical Bakugo, but at the same time, there was a sort of care that was provided despite the daggers of his words. He seems to genuinely be expressing a care for Deku's well-being and the furtherance of his power and time with the quirk. He would additionally speak of how he has gotten stronger since the last time that they have fought, which I'm sure we'll be able to properly see when the time for his match does arise. But with this out of the way, the match between Team Shoto and Team Tetsu would begin. And this is pretty exciting because it is the first match of one of our Class 1A heavy hitters. But just before the match, Tokoyami would come up to Shoto and tell him that the rest is up to him, referring to his performance with the last match, which he was not satisfied with as the protege of the number 2 hero. And with Hawks and Endeavor recently teaming up to face the high-end Nomu in what was a rather arduous bout, he felt it was up to Shoto as Endeavor's son to pick up the slack in the stead of his folly. Now, Shoto would not refute this. In fact, he would agree, but he would take some time to ponder this sentiment. From here, we would receive the adaptation of a scene that I have been waiting for quite some time. Now, despite its familiarity and the fact that this season thus far has given us plenty of flashbacks and recaps, this is a bit of new content that we have not seen before. Endeavor here would continue to push Shoto in his training. He would furthermore speak of how Shoto's elder brother Toya came close to perfection as his firepower was even greater than his father's. However, he lacked the constitution to sustain said power. He would tell Shoto that he is the only one who can inherit the move that he intends to teach him. At this time, Endeavor would tell him not to run from himself, which he ultimately did do for quite some time before being changed by Deku. But beyond this, notice how Shoto has the burn here, which is to say that this occurred after the departure of his mother, and so Shoto's refusal of his own flames didn't come until a bit later, which is interesting to me. In regards to Toya, this is the first time that we have received any manner of direct mention towards his other elder brother. But beyond Shoto's recollection, we have a bit of Iida content. And I am not a fan of Iida. I don't care for this character. He's probably my least favorite character in the entire series. If you like Iida, good for you, I don't. His inspiration and elder brother, who got absolutely brutalized and curb stomped by Stain in season 2, was now beginning to recover well. And man, would you look at that. When you don't have plot armor, it takes you whole seasons to recover. Meanwhile, we've had several characters in and out of the hospital more than once since all of this went down. Deku's been in there 3 times since then. You would think that at the very least a pro hero would have some good health insurance. Now, switching to Team Tetsu, knowing that they are lacking in the sensory department, Tetsu would just go on to just level the playing field, literally. Despite Vlad King's warning, he was just going at it, breaking everything, toppling whole buildings. It was crazy. And this was not communicated to his team at all, but ultimately it was their best course of action. Now, we also had Pony and Mudman speaking a bit of English here, which was really funny. Now, if you didn't know, Pony is actually a foreign exchange student from America, which is why she speaks English when she is angry. From there, we would suddenly shift to Endeavor chasing down a villain. Now, this was a minor villain with a pretty lousy quirk, but even still, this is the sort of thing that I would love to see more of. I want to see the pro heroes actually doing what they do. The general premise of this series is the preparation of young heroes for a future in which they will be professional heroes. And at that, I would like to actually see professional heroes do their thing, and do so in a manner familiar or normal to them, not the once in a blue moon high-end Nomu dropping out of the sky. But perhaps such conventions may be a bit difficult when attempting to progress with the main plot and antagonist, so in that sense I am pretty grateful for the My Hero spin-offs that we have, such as Vigilantes and Team Up missions, both of which are pretty enjoyable reads that we cover here on the channel from time to time, so give them a gander if you are so inclined. Now, Endeavor would end up saving 3 ugly children, one of which looks to be the forgotten love child of Cementos. And although he's still rough around the edges, he was actually able to communicate with them without them running off in terror. But in seeing these 3, Endeavor would then think of his own child. And I say child, not children, because he still is just fixated on Shoto, not the many children that he has under his belt. And so with this, he was hoping to rekindle a degree of a relationship with his son so that he could impart upon him the very technique that he desired to oh so long ago. Now, I don't point this out with bad intentions, but if you notice here, Endeavor is actually rendered here in CG. And because it's not in motion, it is very easy to overlook unless you're like me and you look at this stuff for a living. Right now, season 5 of the My Hero Academia anime is getting a bit of flack from fans in regards to the constant flashbacks and recaps and what have you. And I touched upon this with the previous episode discussion, but I don't think it's a big deal. Yes, to an extent the studio is providing a bit of fluff and cutting corners here and there where they can, but you have to remember that a whole movie is coming out for the series. The same people who are being made to animate this season are then being made to animate an entire theatrical film. These same animators are underpaid, underworked, and understaffed as they are split across not only this and a movie, but several other projects. Historically, the My Hero Academia fandom has a pretty bad reputation when it comes to these sorts of things, but I would like to think that over here on Plot Armor, we are a bit different, so I just wanted to clear that up for all of you. The conclusion to season 4 with that high-end fight was magnificent, but even in there was a bit of CG Endeavor if you look hard enough. But getting back to the battle, Team 1A would split up and Todoroki would begin with the expansion of his ice. And as usual, the scale of this guy's quirk is just out of this world. But even still, Class 1B was prepared for it as Mudman would turn everything into mush. And he would even go as far as to say that if Shoto had gone full throttle with his fire instead, they would have actually been in a way tougher situation. And in this sort of situation, Mudman's quirk is pretty useful. I wouldn't say it's exactly a powerhouse quirk. It's not gonna really take anyone out, but immobilizing them, limiting mobility, it is pretty capable. And as we are reminded here, he is a student that got in by way of recommendation. Now, Mudman looks really cool in his costume. I'm honestly not the biggest fan of his design when he doesn't have the helmet on, but with that on, he looks cool. He's a character known for his flexibility, which in the hero profession is really good, so I can understand why he was recommended. Then we have Spiral with the quirk Gyrate, which is so cool. Oh my gosh, Class 1B has so many interesting quirks under its belt. Maybe this is bad to say, but I would not mind swapping out a few of our Class 1A students for some of these Class 1B powerhouses. I'm going to have an absolute field day with quirk evolution and all these guys. As it currently stands, the fight is going pretty smoothly for Class 1B. They are taking over. And with all this fighting going on, with Mudman's quirk being debilitating for the enemy team, and the fact that it can additionally act as a mush landmine, in fear of inadvertently harming his comrades, Todoroki is limited in the fact that he cannot use the full extent of his flames or ice. And let's be honest here, Shoto is the most terrifying of them all in regards to his quirk and what it can do, so being able to limit that is a power play. Now, as opposed to Class 1B, Class 1A does have a proper sensory quirk in their midst. However, he too would be taken down by Pony this time around. But then we have Tetsu just throwing Shoto around, and Tetsu, oh my goodness, this man has gone up on my list with this episode. He is cool here, oh my goodness. He is just a complete brawler and doing what Kirishima should have been doing during his match. Now with Iida being completely submerged in the mush by way of Mudman, Mudman felt that it was over for him. But Iida has improved since then. His brother actually imparted upon him a secret family technique that would improve his engine several times over. An excruciating ordeal that is like pulling out teeth if your teeth were the size of large metal rods. And because of this, Iida was able to free himself of his binding. And that was the episode. Now, by the looks of it, the first episode of a particular fight doesn't seem to be the most extravagant thing ever. It seems to just be set up, whereas the second episode of said fight is where you get the real heat. And let me tell you, I am really excited for the second half of this fight in particular. As a manga reader, I think that this was my favorite of all of them, so yeah, this is gonna be crazy. But what'd you guys think of this episode, and are you looking forward to even more? And I'd also like to know if you are skipping the outro of these episodes or not, because you definitely should not be. They are bangers, they're too good to be skipped this season. If you enjoyed the episode and our subsequent coverage of it, be sure to subscribe to Plot Armor with notifications on. And additionally, follow us on Instagram and Twitter at PlotArmorYT for the latest and greatest anime and manga news. Because when it comes to bringing you some of the best My Hero Academia content on the platform, Plot Armor has you covered. As always, I am Sliceable Otaku. Thank you all so much for watching and have an awesome day. I love you.